Welcome back, everybody. My name is Taylor Martin. This is the best Damn EDC, and today I'm going to answer a question you guys have been asking me for a very long time, and frequently, mind you. How do you sharpen your knives? It's a question that for a long time kind of plagued me and gave me some anxiety because I was not very good at sharpening knives. In fact, I was very, very bad and ruined a lot of edges on very expensive knives. But for the last several months, I've spent a lot of my free time sharpening, learning, and just fixing the things that I've been noticing I'm doing wrong when sharpening a knife. So I feel like now I'm in a place where I can actually answer this question and not be embarrassed by my work. So with that said, this is how I sharpen my knives, and let's do the damn thing. So I just want to reiterate, I am not the best at sharpening knives, and all I'm really going to be doing here is regurgitating a lot of what I've learned from right here on YouTube about how to sharpen knives, and also from the people in my Discord server. There's a sharpening channel in the Discord server, and they get super in-depth about all this. They're all about some mirror edges and stuff. I personally am not about mirror polished edges on a knife because it only lasts for a few minutes. Like, as soon as you start using your knife, it's gonna start looking worse and worse with time. For me, functionally, it doesn't really serve a purpose. It just looks nice. If you do want to get a little more in depth with it, I would highly recommend joining the Discord, going to the sharpening channel, and you can ask questions there. They're gonna be far better equipped to answer some of your questions than I am. So I've tried many different sharpening systems. I started with a KME and I didn't really like it, honestly, because I felt like the hand grip was backwards. It's been explained to me why that is, but I just never could get into using the KME. So I sold it. I got several Work Sharp precision adjusts. I've used them. I have used the Sharp Maker from Spyderco. I've used a lot of different sharpening systems and to varying results. But the only system that I've used and got just great results almost every single time from, almost out of the gate, was this. Yeah, it's kind of big. So this is the Wicked Edge Gen 3 Pro, and if I had it to do over again, I would not get this one. This one comes in the Nanook 930 case, which is really nice. I wanted a system that I could pick up and bring here to the office and use rather than buying two Wicked Edges. I got the one in the case, but now I bought a house and I have a shop at home, and I really only sharpen in my shop there. So things have changed, and if I were to do it over again, I would not get this one, but I would get this sharpener. You can get this sharpener for much cheaper if you don't get the case, but this is the one with the big, heavy base. So this case weighs like 20, 25 pounds. I mean, it's heavy, it's substantial. But what we have in here is more than just a sharpener. The other thing that I don't really like about this is that things just always fly around in here. But in here, we have a few things that I keep just because sometimes I tear down my knives when I'm sharpening them. So I have some Loctite and some Tuf-Glide. I have an angle cube for, getting really precise angles, an eraser to clean the stones off. I have a little bit of honing compound for my strop, which, disclaimer, I need a better strop. I keep a little shop rag in here just to wipe things down and keep stuff clean. Bunch of alcohol prep pads, some Sharpies, which you'll see why those are in here in a second. I have the Work Sharp field sharpener, the guided field sharpener. I really only have this in here for the strop. I really should just make my own strop. I have all the stuff, I just haven't done it. So I keep that in here just so I have a strop. And then I also keep a little screwdriver set in here just to tear down knives. I obviously have my little toolkit that I've shown you recently, but I have spare tools everywhere, and I keep this stuff in here because this is everything I would need to fix a knife, fix an edge, tear down a knife. It's all in one case. So let's get it out of the box. It is heavy, very substantial. So this system, the Wicked Edge Gen 3 Pro, works just like many other guided systems. The reason I like this one more than, say, the Precision Adjust or the KME, which I used for a long time, is that you've got two rods and two stones to work with. That does make it more expensive because the most expensive thing here is going to be the sharpening stones, but you have two rods to work both sides of the edge without having to move the knife around. With the Precision Adjust and the KME, you've got to flip that knife over and over and over and over. It adds a variable into the mix, right? You're moving that knife and things might not get seated perfectly, or I just didn't like that I constantly had to move the knife around. I want something, if I'm using a clamp system, I want that knife to be clamped and still that whole time. So that's one reason I really like this more. That said, these jam screws can get you in a world of trouble if you're not paying attention, because I was sharpening a knife just the other day over the weekend, and this jam screw ran itself all the way out, and this precision screw, I guess the small adjustment or whatever they want to call it, these are your precision adjust screws. So you set approximately what you want your angle to be with these, and then you can set a fine-tuned angle with these screws here. You can adjust those rods in and out independently of this adjustment, which is nice. But if you don't really lock these jam screws down, and sometimes even if you do, these can work their way out and you're sharpening each side at a different angle, and it can be up to like 3 or 4 degrees off if you're not paying attention. But what I did, if you look very closely, there's a little bit of blue on both of these screws. I put Loctite on there. They're much tighter now, but that Loctite's gonna wear away. What the people in the Discord suggested is putting like Teflon tape around these, and it just creates a little more friction and keeps these from running themselves out. Another thing is that you might not even need to sharpen your knife. I just feel like that's important to note. Over sharpening your knife will ruin or at least cut the longevity of the knife significantly. So if you don't need to be sharpening your knife, don't sharpen your knife. You might just need a hone or a strop. Sometimes that's all you need. That's just a very good first step. Hone and strop to see if you can get the edge back. If not, then work your way back to sharpening. With that said, let's get this knife clamped. Getting a knife positioned in here is really gonna be the hardest part to get down. I don't even really have it down yet, but I try. You're going to use this little depth key with a smaller knife, like a pocket knife. You're gonna put it in this the top holes. And I also use these. I just keep it down in there because it kind of stays in place. But this is a shim that's provided from Wicked Edge. It comes with a whole bunch of these. You can use paper or anything else. It's just a piece of paper. Using a shim, I found, helps me put this blade in here a little bit better, holds a little tighter. There is a tensioner key down here, but I just don't mess with that a whole lot. So drop the shim down in this slot, and then you want to drop the knife into that shim. And then I'm just leveling the knife on this depth key. It's got 2 pins. Level it on that and clamp it down. Now we may end up needing to move this forward or back, and sometimes if you've got a narrower knife, like I have my Shirogorov, this is a very narrow blade, so what ends up happening with this is that depth key puts it too deep, and if you're sharpening at 16 degrees, you're gonna be hitting the actual clamp. So what I end up doing with some skinnier knives is I have to ignore the depth key and try to level that blade by eye and move it up in the clamp, just way up there, and it's barely clamped. So these depth keys don't always work for some pocket knives. It's just the way it's gonna be. So now we have to find the angle, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a Sharpie and just run it down this bevel on both sides all the way down. Just stab it into there, run it down the bevel. I know based on what I've done in using pocket knives that this thing tends to be about a ½ degree off on pocket knives. So I automatically jump to about 25.5 on this scale, but if you really need to, you can put an angle cube here and make sure you're getting the right angle. It's not showing the correct angle right now, I don't think. Probably 24 something, 24.8. And then this, I'm showing actually 25.2. So this is what I was talking about with using that shim and getting the knife perfectly upright. I don't think it is, because this one's off by about how much this one's off. So I'm just gonna loosen it and hold it kind of to this side a little bit as it clamps. What these little precision screws or these set screws do is I can loosen this, and since this one is off by just a little bit, bring it in just a hair and clamp this down. You want to run that in tight. Make sure it's really tight. Same thing over here. Thank you, Train. So I don't always use the angle cube because I feel like it's not super helpful. I more or less try to sharpen to what the knife is versus getting these exact angles. The only time I'm really looking at getting the exact angle is if I'm totally reprofiling that knife. If I'm setting it from 25 down to 20, I want them both to be 20, right? That makes sense, but if I'm just sharpening it at what it already is, I don't really care about that too much. But I wanted to make sure they were pretty close to begin with. So we have this set to 25 degrees on the nose, and since we put the Sharpie on here, I'm just gonna take this stone and work it up and down that edge kind of lightly and make sure that I'm erasing all of that Sharpie. And this side, Sharpie's totally gone. Same thing on this side, I imagine, except for right here at the tip, so we might need to do a little more work at the tip. But that angle is right, as far as I can tell, all the way down there. 25 degrees on this knife. We're gonna take these 1000 grit stones off and switch to 100. And this is where we actually start sharpening. So we've not done anything sharpening wise to this point, just finding the angle. Now what we're gonna try to do is apex. So first we're getting a burr on this side. We're gonna work left side first. It's just how I do it. And I'm gonna make sure that this entire edge has a burr. So that's the knife kind of rolling over the edge all the way down. And then we're gonna do the same thing with the other side and make sure it burrs all the way down. And what you're trying to do is actually apex. If you do not get a burr on this side and a burr on this side, you're gonna end up with spots that aren't sharp. And that's obviously not ideal if you're trying to sharpen a knife. So first get a burr on one side, get the burr on the other side, and then we're gonna work our way through the stone. So just take this stone, and for this, I'm just gonna work up and down, heel to tip, back and forth, and just make sure I get a burr on this whole edge. And where it's kind of darker here, the Sharpie's not going on this tip, we might have to work a little extra on the tip. The other thing that's really easy to do when you're working on a knife like this is it is very easy to roll the tip of the blade. It's something I've done a lot. And what I do to kind of combat that, you're really only using the weight of the stone here. I'm not like digging into this blade. I'm just letting the stone do the work. But as you get towards the tip, kind of roll that stone back a little bit. You're not wanting to lift it off the blade, but you're putting a little bit of back pressure on it, not to roll it off, but just a little bit of back pressure to make sure that it doesn't roll this way. Because if you roll the stone that way, which is very easy to do at the start, you'll roll that tip off, and it's work to get the tip back. And we're already working that tip too. It's almost gone. The tip isn't almost gone, the Sharpie's almost gone. For your burr, what you do is just use your fingernail. I don't think there's much of a burr yet. I can feel it there. There's a little burr along all of this. Not all of it, but most of it. Just keep working until you've burred the whole edge. You can hear the difference. If I'm using my fingernail over here, it just kind of rolls off the edge. If I use my fingernail on this side, you can hear that burr. This side should go pretty fast. Yeah, it's already burred all the way. Okay, so it's burred all the way to this side now, and really all we're doing now is going to use the stones alternating and just following the blade. And I do probably about 10 to 20 more passes with the 100, flip over and do the 200. I'll probably do 20 or so passes either side, and then work our way through. I might do fewer than that with the lower grits, but as we get to the higher grits, I'll do more passes. So really all we're doing now is starting down here, hold the stones down here, place this stone flat against the bevel, and just working, alternating sides all the way from heel to tip, making sure not to roll, making sure not to go past the tip of the knife. This gets way, way easier the more you do it. But I am not going to be fast like those guys, those pro sharpeners who use Wicked Edge and just fly through this. I found that I end up hitting the stones together a lot, or I'll end up rolling a stone. It's not what I'm looking for. I'd rather be slow and precise than to screw my work up. So we're gonna flip and go 200. Yeah, that's feeling really sharp. So now we go to 400, 600. Do 400 first, obviously, and we're just going to progress, and it's going to go this fast from this point on. Oh yeah. All right, 800 and 1000. Okay, that is looking very clean. Let's move this out of the way. So I'm just gonna wipe the edge down a little bit. So I sharpened at 25 so I can use this angle guide on the work sharp strop, which is really nice. But if you sharpen at any other degree, that angle guide does not help you at all. And all we're really doing now is making sure to remove any debris or burrs from the bevel. Clean it up. That honing compound does a really nice job of that. And you can go crazy with your strop if you want. Do different strops, different micron levels. All right, so this thing went from very, very dull. I should have shown you that it wouldn't really slice paper before. But now we have a sheet of paper and the knife that we've been working on. This thing is nice and sharp. I am pleased with that. I could make this sharper. I could make this hair popping sharp if that was not even hair popping sharp. It is hair popping sharp right now. I'm sure it will shave if you want to get in tight right around here. I'm sure this thing will shave very well. It's very, very sharp. Now it is not hair splitting sharp, but it is definitely shaving sharp. Let's just even it up a little bit. So that's it. That's how I sharpen my knives. I've been very pleased with this Wicked Edge and the results I get with it and how easy it's been to learn. Now that's not to say that it hasn't also had some learning curve. There is definitely a learning curve to it, and the majority of that is learning the fine-tuning system and how not to roll your edge, which is, it's kind of a principle that once you learn it on one system, it kind of translates to the others. So if you're already past that, don't worry about it. But it does take time and effort. It's something you're gonna have to practice at and fail at to get better at it. And that's something I just put off for far too long. I've got some really expensive knives that I have ruined by not taking the time to learn to sharpen properly. And I've finally gotten past that with this, and I bought a bunch of cheap knives and learned on it. And it's been really, really great. I highly recommend Wicked Edge. Although, again, I don't know that I would go with the one with the case. I'd just get a bench top and move on because I don't really see myself moving this around a whole lot. So just as a closing note, I think the thing that most people are looking for is a really good and cheap way to sharpen your knives. But if you have some really expensive knives and really good quality stuff, you should try to match the quality of your knife sharpener to the quality of your knives. So if you have a bunch of, like, I don't know, Civivis and really great budget-friendly knives, I think you can get by with the Work Sharp Precision Adjust just fine. Even into your Benchmades and stuff, totally fine. But if you're carrying a bunch of like customs and Chris Reeves and Hinderers and all these kind of $500 and $600 and beyond knives, I think you should be trying to match the quality of the sharpener to the knife. If you're willing to spend that much money on a single knife, you should also be willing to spend about as much on your sharpener. And you can get a Wicked Edge for $300-400. You do not have to spend $1,000 like I did, and I, again, would not recommend, but I do think you should be willing to spend a significant chunk of change on the sharpener. I did, and I've been very, very pleased with this thing ever since. It has actually made me not hate sharpening. Not only did I learn how to sharpen properly, but I actually kind of enjoy it. It's a little cathartic now. So I think getting the right system and spending the money is worth it. Although it is a big pill to swallow, I think it's something you should be considering, especially if you have multiple several $100 knives in your collection. I hope this helped, and everything I talked about will be linked in the description down below. If you purchase anything using those links, it does help support what I'm doing here. You can also go to patreon.com/bestdamnEDC to support there. But that's all for now. Thank you guys again for watching, and until next time, carry on.